Imagine you were driving down the N1 motorway through the Somosierra mountain pass in the early morning hours of June 25, 1986. The air is crisp, the Spanish countryside is quiet, and the sun is just beginning to peek over the horizon. Suddenly, the silence is shattered. A massive red Volvo F12 tanker truck roars past you, moving at an terrifying, impossible speed of 140 kilometers per hour. You watch in horror as the driver loses control on a sharp curve. The massive vehicle skids, flips, and crashes violently against the rocks. Instantly, the cistern ruptures, unleashing a torrent of 20,000 liters of highly concentrated sulfuric acid across the asphalt. Vapor and caustic fumes fill the air. When emergency services arrive, they are met with a scene out of a nightmare. The acid has washed over the cabin, horribly damaging the remains of the driver, Andrés Martínez Navarro, and his wife, Carmen Gómez Legas. But as the fumes clear and investigators begin to piece together the tragedy, a chilling realization sets in. There was a third passenger in that truck, their 10-year-old son, Juan Pedro Martínez Gómez. His clothes are right there in the cabin, but his body is completely gone. How does a child vanish from a catastrophic accident scene in the mere minutes it takes for help to arrive? Initially, authorities leaned into a gruesome but straightforward theory. The sheer volume of leaked sulfuric acid had completely dissolved the boy's body. However, forensic experts quickly debunked this. While sulfuric acid is devastatingly corrosive, completely dissolving a human body requires total, prolonged submersion over a significant period. The emergency services had responded rapidly, and the bodies of Juan Pedro's parents, while severely chemically burned, were still largely intact. If the acid didn't destroy him, where was he? When investigators dug into the mechanics of the crash, the case took a sharp turn from a tragic traffic accident into the dark underbelly of organized crime. The mechanical check. The truck had recently passed a rigorous safety inspection specifically for this trip. The brakes and steering were completely functional. The tachograph anomalies. Investigators pulled the truck's tachograph data, and what they found defied logic. On the final 13-kilometer stretch leading up to the crash, Andrés had made a total of 12 short, consecutive stops. He never left the motorway. There were no traffic jams at 6 a.m. The hidden cargo. A meticulous dismantling of the wrecked tanker later revealed trace amounts of heroin hidden inside the vehicle. Neither Andrés nor Carmen had criminal records, but extended family members soon dropped a bombshell. Andrés had allegedly been coerced and threatened by a local drug smuggling ring into transporting narcotics to northern Spain. Suddenly, those 12 bizarre stops made terrifying sense. Andrés wasn't experiencing engine trouble, he was being followed, intercepted, or actively harassed on the highway. Two primary theories dominate the investigation into what happened in those frantic moments before and after the crash. The first theory suggests that the drug ring had kidnapped Juan Pedro at one of the earlier stops to use him as collateral, ensuring Andrés would deliver the cargo to Bilbao. In this scenario, the final, deadly 140 km/h sprint down the mountain pass wasn't a reckless driving error. It was a desperate, high-speed pursuit. Andrés was actively chasing the criminals who had his son, losing control of the heavy tanker in a fit of pure panic and grief. The second theory relies heavily on bizarre eyewitness testimony from the immediate aftermath of the crash. Several motorists who stopped to help reported seeing a white Nissan Vanette arrive at the scene shortly after the impact. From the van emerged a strange couple, a tall, middle-aged man with a foreign accent and an older woman who claimed to be a nurse. According to these witnesses, the couple didn't try to administer first aid to the dying parents. Instead, they methodically searched the wreckage, pulled out a large, bundled package, loaded it into the back of their van, and sped away. Police eventually tracked and vetted over 3,000 white vans across Spain, but the mysterious nurse and her companion were never identified. To understand the tragedy of Somosierra, we have to look past the physical evidence and analyze the behavioral psychology of the actors involved: the father, Andrés, and the hypothetical abductors. If we accept the premise that Andrés was acting under duress from a smuggling ring, his behavior in the final hours of his life mirrors a classic psychological shift from controlled compliance to hyper-reactivity. When individuals are coerced into criminal acts via proxy threats to their family, they initially exhibit high levels of vigilance and compliance. The 12 short stops suggest a high-friction interaction. Andres was likely experiencing severe cognitive overload, balancing the safety of his family against the demands of dangerous criminals. However, when a proxy threat turns into an immediate crisis, such as his son being pulled from the truck, the human brain bypasses rational decision-making and enters a state of hyper-arousal, triggering an extreme fight or flight response. Driving a 20,000-liter acid tanker at 140 km per hour down a dangerous mountain pass is a manifestation of acute stress-induced tunnel vision. In psychology, this is known as a behavioral regression to primal protection instincts. The magnitude of the danger to his son entirely eclipsed the baseline survival instinct for himself and his wife. If the white van theory holds true, the behavior of the foreign-accented couple reveals a highly compartmentalized, antisocial psychological profile. High psychopathic deviant, zero empathy for dying parents. Goal-directed focus. Prioritized securing the boy cargo over life. Impression management. Used a nurse persona to lower bystander suspicion and minimize immediate interference. Their ability to navigate a chaotic, horrific accident scene filled with toxic acid fumes to retrieve a child or a package demonstrates a profound level of emotional blunting and calculated detachment. They didn't panic, they executed a task. Ultimately, whether Juan Pedro was taken as leverage before the crash or stripped from the wreckage as a piece of surviving evidence, his disappearance remains a haunting riddle. Decades later, the Somosierra mountain pass keeps its secrets, leaving us to wonder if the boy who earned good grades was a casualty of a crash, or a ghost stolen away into the morning mist.